This is a Little Empire podcast. Visit us at littleempirepodcast.com.
You're going to play that dastardly intro again?
Ow! This movie's still fine.
There's a Coley pasta.
One of them dies, that goes screw. One of them's a hottie, his name is Jay. One of them looks like Johnny Depp, and his name is Johnny Depp.
Classic Maximum Joseph.
You forget that films are supposed to have a point.
Hello and welcome to the worst idea of all time with myself, Tim Batt.
And myself, Guy Montgomery. We have reunited once more to discuss Maximum Joseph's magnum opus. We are your friends for the 15th time. We watched the movie Sons Company, that is to say, without one another, and it's getting harder and harder.
I had company this week, though, Guy. This is the bit you don't know about my conditions of watching this week. Also, if you're a newcomer, welcome. Welcome along. This is the worst idea of all time, a podcast in which myself and Guy watch and review the same movie every week for 52 weeks in a row. We've already done it once with Adam Sandler's movie Grown Ups 2, and then we did it with, screw it, I'm just going to call it Sarah Jessica Parker's movie, Sex and the City 2. And now we're doing it with
gross
Zac Efron
disservice
and Maximum Joseph's
to both Michael and Patrick King. But I will let it slide, as I'm not in the mood for nitpicking, Tim. If you've got nits, I'm afraid that they're your problem. I want nothing to do with
the wrong
them.
mattress. So this week, Guy, sober as a judge was I watching the film. Not recommended. But I was watching it on the projector and in the company of my lovely girlfriend Zoe. And there's something that happens when you watch this movie, or indeed any movie that you've seen over a dozen times, and you know that you have to watch another, 30-odd, where you kind of draw their enthusiasm like a vampire sucking on their blood. You kind of steal something from them. You get something out of it. And I felt kind of guilty in some ways watching it with her. And she had a lot of questions. The early questions was, is this movie just a big music video? That came a couple times in the first 10 minutes. And Zoe also observed that this movie seems like you're kind of welcomed into it about halfway through. Like you're coming into something that's already been going for a little while. It's a bit janky.
You reckon halfway is when the movie starts being a movie and stops being an intro? Or Zoe reckons that?
Yeah, well, yeah. She felt like it wasn't really, it's not an easy intro into this journey into Maximum Joseph's debauched mind.
Into his oeuvre. I don't know. I would have loved to be there with you two, I'll tell you that. I really could have used Zoe's moral support. I also would have liked to rebut against that ludicrous and foolish theory. What does she know about this movie, Tim? She's watched it once. She's a goddamn amateur, an idiot. It's embarrassing for her to wade in to the expert pool from over in the learner's Jacuzzi and start throwing opinions around. This movie...
The learner's Jacuzzi.
It comes out like a bottle rocket right out of the gates. It's the favourite in the Melbourne Cup. It's the fastest horse. But what we soon learn is that pace is only on account of it's had a lot of bananas and wheat bix for breakfast, and it's not a slow burning energy. It's fast. See, I reckon it starts off and you're like, yeah, it's all happening, and then about halfway through you realise that there's no stakes and there's nowhere for it to go, and that's where it slows down for mine.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, she was like, hey, this isn't so bad, and I was like, just hold off for a tick, because it's all about to come to a screeching halt pace-wise. But I'll tell you what, without getting too ahead of myself, seeing as how it's 4 minutes in, she came out of that movie, Zoe did, she watched the entire thing with me, and she said, it's not that good, but it's not offensive. That's what she said.
That's right, she said. And that is the fortunate perspective of those in the learner's Jacuzzi who deem it necessary to only watch this movie once, or nunts even.
Yeah. Would you put people who've seen it nunts in the learner's Jacuzzi, or are they in some even warmer, more inviting body of water? I don't know what a warmer body of water than a jacuzzi is. Probably a vat.
No, it'd be a sauna, wouldn't it? They'd be in the
starter sauna.
Quarantine sauna. Yeah, or starter sauna, if you're into sibilance. which I certainly Sam. What I miss, I guess, having Zoe there or someone there means that, you know, you're reminded of what the stakes supposedly are meant to be. You're reminded of when Squirrel dies. It's quite shocking.
And it was for her too. That was a big moment.
Well, yeah, because they haven't earned the right to kill any of their characters. It's a very shocking moment. But now I just don't care. I'm like, yeah, of course Squirrel dies. Squirrel dies every week. It's boring. It's predictable. Squirrel is always dying. It's the same thing with, did they get it with the bait and switch where they like come over big fight and Zaccoli goes over to James Reed's house and he's like, oh, I'm about to get told off. And then James Reed's like, let's watch some wrestling.
I don't think Zoe was actually that interested at that point. She didn't seem to be invested enough to even kind of notice that classic bait and switch. But I've always admired that one. I think it's a goodie, you know.
I used to, but now it's much like Squirrel's death. I know it's coming. I need someone else with fresh eyes to see it to remind me that you're not meant to see that coming.
One thing that I can barely stress enough is, in spite of the fact that I have moral support there in the form of my beautiful girlfriend being by my side, watching this movie sober at this point is a fucking nightmare. It's so unpalatable. I've poured myself a very large glass of whiskey actually for the post-mortem, and I'll be looking for extended breaks as you take the reins for me to just gulp down a big old mouthful of 12-year-old single malt, if you please.
If I've learned anything in the time I've spent over the years doing this podcast away from you, Tim, it's that encouraging you to load up on booze during records is very important for the integrity of the podcast. And at this point, you know, you could almost make an argument that it's a crutch. I mean, this wouldn't be the first time I've gone on record as saying we're all worried about your Timbly Wimbly. But also, you'll notice that I've been speaking for long enough that you could have a healthy slug.
I've had a couple. I'm fine with alcohol being a bit of a crutch for my performance on the podcast at this point. We've set such a strange parameter for this show, which is now in its second and a half year, that it's just like, fuck it, whatever's happening. I'm fine with that. And I'm usually pretty pedantic about things like that. Even when I'm doing stand-up, I don't like to kind of get in a zone where I'm just constantly, you know, having 3 beers before I go on stage or something. I always try to cut in with some no drinking, but this thing, fuck it, man. Just anything. Bring it all on.
Look, I hear you. I mean, I watched it here. I'm in a very small town called Lambourn. It's about an hour and a half out of London. I don't know in what direction. I think southwest. And it's quite a beautiful day. I mean, there's nothing happening outside of the the house that I'm in, or the unit, if you'd call it that. But the movie was plodding. I really didn't want to watch it. I hear what you mean on the sobriety front. You need some sort of curveball to make it accessible, because at this point it's water off a duck's back.
We've turned a fucking page. We've really turned a corner this time. Like, I feel this week we've gone down a gear, and it took a fucking long time. To Maximum Joseph's credit, he had us on that leash for a while, but now I feel is the word demonstrative? Is that the word I'm looking for? Is that when you get kind of agitated and you feel a bit punchy?
Demonstrative. Demonstrative would be to do with demonstrating, wouldn't it?
No, that's demonstrable.
No, I mean, demonstrative. Demon, from the Latin demon, meaning the devil. Strative, from the French strata, meaning stable. So you're either in a stable of devils, or you've taken on the mental stability of Lucifer himself.
I can't argue with that.
Well, I wouldn't ask you to, Tim. Did you have any notes? Did you take anything away from it this week or this performance that you hadn't seen before? Did anyone turn in a particularly strong showing?
I think watching it on a projector is not a bad way to go, just to mix it up a little bit. It's really seeing those pixels blasted up to hitherto for unforeseen size, which was interesting. Gravitated a lot towards the guy that Zaccoli punches right in the face at the Stanford party this week. It's right on his side. It's like the bigger he gets, the more you warm to him. Oh yeah, big time. Yeah, all you need to do is blow him up.
I don't think anyone comes out of that scene looking too cool, but I guess it's nice, isn't it? It's nice to take different sides on different weeks. What made his performance more sympathetic? Was it just pure size?
I think he made a real effort to try and get on board with whatever Somali's profession was. He said he likes music, which is a bold call, just for something to say out loud, really, you know? Not a lot of people would say those words out of their face hole.
Yeah. It would be embarrassing. I mean, the assumption is that we all like music. Would you say, Tim, I mean, so you thought he played a sincere and sympathetic role in conversation with Somali?
Comparatively, yeah, definitely. He's just got such a punchable face, but once you get past that a little bit, I guess he's still a piece of shit. Fuck, I don't know, man.
Do you take pity?
Nah, don't try and fuck this.
I don't want you to
fuck this movie, man.
Railroad a legitimate question with your fury, your righteous fury. Do you generally, after taking sympathy with this character this week, feel bad for people whose face you might describe as punchable? No one chooses the shape of their face.
No, but I've definitely got a thing, and I think most people have this in them, where you physically alter how you look at someone, like their attractiveness changes over time, and this is gender neutral, based on the information you know about the person. So if you meet someone who's very attractive and then you get to know them and they turn out to be a real piece of shit, increasingly so over time as you get more information about them, I think for me at least, they physically get less good looking, they get uglier when I have that intel. And conversely, someone who might be quite average looking will grow more beautiful before my eyes as I learn good things about them.
And so you're saying that you can overcome someone having a specifically punchable face as you learn information about their personality. And hey, maybe they're a lovely person. Maybe they've spent their entire life trying to remedy the unfortunate situation that is their face.
Yeah, and I mean, to be fair, this guy's not a sterling example of that, because he is talking about one of his fellow party guests' tits and how she failed out of school, which is one of those things in the movie that they keep repeating as a turn of phrase as if it's real, and it isn't. Like how they keep using the word spin for DJ, like the verb is always spin. Do you spin here regularly?
Yeah.
Where in the world have
they really needed a bloody DJ thesaurus to find anything that wasn't the word spin. I mean, the more they say it, the more it loses meaning. It's like, do you know sometimes when you look up a word in the dictionary and you're combing through the letter, so say in this instance it's the word spin, and you're combing through all of the S words to get to SP where it says spin, and suddenly all of the S's look to me to be backwards. Or this could be unique to me. I've never really said it out loud before.
How often are you thumbing through the dictionary?
Not as often as you'd think. I mean, very rarely. I couldn't actually tell you the last time I picked up the physical artifact and had a look through.
But this is something you remember from your time with dictionaries.
Yeah, I remember it vividly. I'd always, if I'd be looking through one letter long enough, I'd always think that the letter was playing tricks on me and sort of flip-flopping.
Oh boy. What a strange childhood you must have had, Monty.
I mean, I spent more time away from dictionaries.
Losing your stomach was the feeling of having a vagina. And now I learn about your predilection toward thinking that dictionaries were playing tricks on you. As if they would take the time.
yeah, look, I never thought they were sentient. I was aware that the problem was probably within my own mind, but it was definitely recurring enough for me to remember. I don't think it was
just how it felt.
I don't think it was super interesting. I think I just got caught up on certain details, and I was wrong, and I'm willing to admit that. Speaking of different watching circumstances this week, Tim, I went whole hog after your recommendation last week with blasting the noise to maximum volume in honor of Maximum Joseph. I put on some really nice headphones and blast the volume. Well, I'll tell you who was doing a lot of heavy lifting, and at some point with every movie we watch, this discovery sort of rears its head. The sound engineer, whoever that person was, did a fantastic job.
They're the hardest working persons in show business. Truly they are.
Yeah, well, because their job, of course, if it's done well, it will not be noticed.
Yeah. It's like lighting, isn't it?
Yeah.
Say what you will about Grown Ups too, I could see all of it.
And that hasn't changed. I did have the sincere thought at one point watching the movie this week that I'd kill for a go around with Grown Ups too. Just felt like there was more happening.
Yeah, I sort of get what you mean. It's like there's less humans, or less human. There's a lot more characters in Grown Ups too, but a lot less kind of character. But there is more action. And sometimes that's all you need to get by. But I think this is just simply a case of you romanticizing a past relationship. This is the girlfriend who didn't treat you right for a long time. And you've just got rose-tinted visions of what that relationship was like because now she's gone.
Undoubtedly. I also think maybe if to use a cooking metaphor, We Are Your Friends, they have a pretty plain recipe, and they sort of, they put it all in there, and the meal came out and it's pretty bland, it's pretty tasteless. It's definitely a meal, whereas Grown Ups too, I don't think they were really working off anything. They just put a lot of different flavors in a bowl and served it up.
Yeah.
And accordingly,
they never cooked it,
yeah, there's a lot more to pick apart. I mean, there's a lot more different tastes that you have to figure out and work through.
Tell you what I did do before watching the film, just as I was burning some time waiting for our pre-agreed on start time to come around, is I watched the first 10 minutes with Zoe of XOXO, which was the Netflix film, which I think's only just been released, which is kind of like just a rip-off of We Are Your Friends. Yeah. And here's my take on the first 10 minutes at least, because that's all I've seen of it. It looks like a better executed version of what we're watching, but very Disneyfied, whatever the verb would be. It's like very saturated, and they seem to be a younger cast, and there's no cussing, no effing or jeffing in the first 10 minutes that I could remember. And I look forward to watching it with you, Guy, at some stage, because I think that's necessary.
I don't think it would be any better or worse than We Are Your Friends. I just think it'll be different.
Yeah, but different is better, always. This is the nature of the beast. You're even willing to go back to Grown Ups too, a movie that you know is terrible, simply because we've had a stand-down period of a year and a half since we last saw it. That's the bare difference that's needed to be better than what we're currently doing.
There's a beautiful irony. Well, not irony, but it's very disappointing to hear you say that different is better, with the knowledge that the entire premise of this podcast is that not different
and isn't that the point?
Is interesting.
And isn't that what it all boils down to, Guy Montgomery? This is not us doing what's right, it's us doing what's wrong, and that's what's right about. I'm just fucking fed up this week, eh? I've really had it. There's nothing more in this movie for it to give to either of us, and I'm pissed off. I'm mad about it.
I'll slow you down. I'll slow down that anger. I spotted a few odds and ends this week which tickled my fancy and took my interest. Just for those of you listening at home, you'll probably hear the unmistakable sound of a kettle on the boil. The reason I'm in Lambourn is I'm visiting my older sister Alice, who is She's actually at a jockey treatment facility called Oaksey House, which is where they, for people who ride horses, specifically jockeys originally, they get quite unique horse-related injuries that only a horse could inflict upon a person. And my sister has befallen one of these injuries. Quite a severe injury. She's now upset with me for not doing her injury justice. The reason she's here, she's walking around the kitchen in slow motion making a cup of tea with one crutch. She's meant to be walking on 2 crutches. And before I tell you this, I'll also let you know that she's slated to make a full recovery, so you needn't worry about her. But she fell off a horse were you riding a cross-country, Al? Yeah. She fell off a horse. Can you imagine this? She broke not one, but both of her collarbones, 5 ribs, shattered her pelvis, and snapped or broke in half, similar to a snap, her femur. She's more metal than bone, Tim. And she punctured a lung. And so
Good God.
I'm sort of here. Yeah, I know. I'm here taking some time out to hang out with her. We've had a lovely time. We started watching Stranger Things together. But it's a very small facility. It's built for one. And so if you hear the rumblings of another person in the room, that's what's going on here. And that's why it's such a small town. What do you think of Lambourn now?
It's small.
It's small, she says.
But as I can't really get around it, it's quite good that it's not too
But she doesn't mind that because she can't really get round.
Yeah.
Anyway,
No,
so
I'm getting
if
that,
you hear
guy. I'm getting that.
if you hear a rustling and a wrestling in the background, you needn't worry. It's just my dear older sister fixing herself a cup of tea. It's actually my job to make the teas and the food, but because I'm recording the podcast, she's doing what is basically a 1-minute job in about 10.
How many
now-
lives need this podcast negatively affect?
Now back to the matter at hand. So I understand you're upset, Tim, as well you should be.
Now it feels like you're comparing my anger with Alice's horse injuries,
Hey,
which
look-
I'll just say for the audience that I have had the run through previously and was just shocked to hear the extent of them, and am so delighted to hear that she's making a full recovery, and that is. The reason why I may not be flipping out about that is it's not new knowledge for old Timbo, but God, I think I speak on behalf of every listener out there when I say we wish Alice a super speedy recovery, because that's fucked up, man. That's a lot of real messy injuries. That's a lot of pain.
I will relay your well wishes as well, Tim. And
Please do it again.
and
yeah.
For you to measure your anger against Alice's injuries, I mean, it's unnecessary. It's
Well, it feels like that's what you're doing though, because you're going. Hold on.
I think
Tim.
sometimes you read into things, the way you want to, and
Oh, don't you start with me, mate. When you shove an absolute litany of injuries after me expressing my anger at having to watch a film a few too many times out of my own construction, you're really you're really proving what a facade this whole thing is all I'm saying. You're really putting it in a very accurate perspective, and you're showing me up to be the complete asshole that I assume now that I am.
I haven't said
So
any of
thanks.
these things, so you have read all of that for yourself.
Look, I can read
not
between
one
the
of those
lines.
things that I say. But Tim, this is what I've been trying to say before you got distracted by your own defensiveness.
What are you doing now? Are you opening a packet of biscuits onto the microphone?
Not onto the microphone, but near the microphone. Look, your boy needs sustenance. I noticed some things that I think you'll enjoy me sharing with you. Number one.
For the love of fuck, do not eat a biscuit on microphone. We got complaints last time you ate, and some of them were from me. It's disgusting, and I can't stand it.
That doesn't sound like a complaint. That sounds like Tim having a problem.
Yeah, but it wasn't just me.
Do you want to hear about my thoughts or not? Because you're
Yeah, I
bringing
do,
it
but I really want to hear them without you chewing on a biscuit, please.
Well, I guess it's a mystery that will be revealed with time, whether or not I so choose to eat a biscuit as I talk. Now, Paige, last week you made the astute observation that Paige was in fact not referring to the chandelier within the house, but to the next door neighbour chandelier, who he was very excited to see. I think not only that, there was another exciting revelation as they left Tanya Romero's house, where he says to Cole, we just made real fucking money in there. You got that? Real fucking money. Now, for weeks on end, we've thought that when he says real fucking money, Paige is referring to the volume which they've earned, as opposed to sort of petty change or small cash. They've made a real earning here. I put it to you, Tim, that that's not what he's referring to. But the fact is, part of the reason that Paige's entire office has been decked out with concrete and he's been putting his penis inside precious stones is because he is a madman who has been trading entirely in either monopoly money or fake checks.
Oh,
and so
God.
What's happened is, for the first time in his career as a real estate mogul, he's actually closed a deal which is legal tender.
Right.
And he's so excited.
How's the business been afloat for so long, operating on this funny money?
To borrow a turn of phrase from the beloved Norm MacDonald, through sheer tyranny of will.
I feel like Norm might have got that from somewhere else, but I'm going to overlook that. I just, like, do you think he's paying the employees in monopoly currency as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think where a lot of his time and energy is going, because we know he's hiring incompetent staff. We know that the staff can't close any deals, right? They always have to defer to Paige. And accordingly, I don't think they quite know the extent to which Paige's lunacy runs riot. And so a lot of his time in his office is spent dyeing monopoly money and hand painting it to look like real cash. And this might also explain why when he says, let me break you off something real proper like, and hands over an envelope filled with cash, you'll remember every week Johnny Depp takes the money out of the envelope and says, smell it. He always wants Cole to smell the money.
Holy shit, I've never heard him say that I can recall at all.
Every week. And it's an ADR as well. You don't see his mouth moving. This is a decision that Maximum Joseph made after everything had been shot. He said, you, Johnny Depp, I want you to tell Cole to smell the money. And I think the reason he wants to smell it is because it smells like paint.
Right. So it's got that good fumey new car smell on it.
I mean, I'm just speculating here. These are the thoughts of an idle mind left to fester on its own.
Well, I really like where your head's at, and I think you're definitely onto something. Paige, such a complicated character, and I think the real star of this film, when you get down to it.
Man,
it's just a
every
rich
time
tapestry there.
Yeah, every time I'm struggling, Paige is the life raft I cling onto for hope.
I like that they bring him back near the end of the film as well, and there's no reason for him to be in that montage while Zaccoli is playing his terrible track. To
him and Johnny Depp are vaping.
Yeah, they're floating a bloody douche flute between each other in the car, and it's just to remind you that Paige is still alive and still being Paige. It's like, I wonder what Paige is doing right now. It's like, yes, he's still going. Still doing his thing.
That's right. Lunacy will outlast us all.
Fuck, he is a madman. And he's just the kind of guy who'll build the empire that will eventually, like, buy up all of the failing record companies that Zaccoli made a deal with for his record. And Paige will end up being just the master. He'll be the puppet master over this whole thing.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
everyone will succumb to Paige.
Paige is, until he goes to court for fraud. Probably on 2 counts. Once for the shady dealings he's doing with regards to real estate, and twice for painting money and trading off it like it's legal tender.
I almost see Paige as sort of a Trumpian figure, though, in that he'll just keep talking. He'll keep talking at people until they sort of stop bothering him. So, like, he'll be in a court case and he'll just keep going. And eventually everyone will just get so done, tuck it out, that they'll dismiss the case and he'll just go about his business some more. Feels like that kind of
You
guy.
You think that's a reasonable angle to play in court? The angle of just talking and talking until people lose interest in the fact that you're a serious criminal?
I thought that was the entire point of court, is to see if you can just outlast the other people. You just keep going.
I've
Like
never
every
known
court case is won by a filibuster, and it's just who can go the longest.
I never knew that court was purely an endurance sport.
Why do you think lawyers always look so fit? Because they've got to have incredible stamina to keep going for so long.
Why
talking away.
why are more people in courtrooms not wearing exercise gear?
Well, because the exercise has been done. Why do people not wear exercise gear on a basketball court, Guy? Because they're playing basketball at that point. You wear
They
the
are
exercise
wearing-
gear when you exercise.
They're wearing sports gear.
The point remains.
Basketball
that
players aren't playing basketball in suits, Tim.
No, but they're wearing their uniform, and the uniform of court is a suit and a tie. You wear your training gear to build up that endurance and that stamina, and then you get to the sport of talking at a judge until you can't talk no more. And whoever gets to do that the longest, they win the case. That is my understanding of the legal system.
And the loser, even if the person who can't talk for as long as the plaintiff, immediately becomes the criminal.
Yes, exactly. They get found guilty. Someone is found guilty in every court case. That's a little known fact about the justice system. Because if a
That's
crime's
why-
been committed, or even just alleged, someone has to be guilty, right?
We can't get a room full of people in a court and not have some sort of consequence.
No, it'd be a waste. Real waste. Sorry, I just drank a lot of that whiskey all at once, and I am drinking it straight, so every now and then it catches me a little off guard.
You needn't worry about that, my friend.
It's a bit of spring in my step.
Well, I'm glad that we've sort of at least got to hammer
Oh,
into the legal system.
Can I tell you something though, Guy? I've got to say, watching the post-coital hotel room service breakfast, which you offered up many weeks ago, was an improv that Zac Efron and Emily Ratajkowski just dived into. The more I watch that scene, the more hand on heart I am convinced that you were right about that. Like there was absolutely no script for that scene. In fact, that moment probably wasn't in the shooting script. That is them just ad-libbing, flying
There's
off the
no
handle.
doubt. It can't have been in the script because no script editor, no one anywhere in the world would look at that dialogue on the page and say, yep.
Yeah. It's crazy. And it's like they revert. It's a weird moment because it's like Emily Ratajkowski stops acting in that scene for a brief moment. There's two moments in this movie where I feel like we really see her rather than her playing a character. Like she just sort of, takes a little brief respite from acting while the cameras are rolling. It's that bit. That bit I really feel like we're dealing with Emily and not Somali. And right at the end, when she's listening to Zaccoli's new hit track on the headphones, when he comes to sort of offer a bit of a mea culpa at the North Hollywood cafe that she's working at now. I feel like that moment when the camera's on her and the music's playing, she's just nodding her head. I feel like that's not acting either. There's something about that smile that's just like, we've stopped dealing with Somali and we've started dealing with Emily. And I don't hate it. I don't hate it at all. But it's just an interesting little quirk of the movie that an actor would decide to stop acting for a bit.
Well, I think because they don't exactly give her a meaty character in the form of Sophie, do they? It's not a lot to sink your teeth into. I think a lot of the casting was based on the fact that certain characteristics would be similar to her, would be within her acting range. That is to say, it's not like Sophie is the most developed of all the characters in the film. She's pretty much there to drive a wedge between James Reed from the Feelers and Zaccoli, would you not say?
It's a comparative game that you're playing, Guy, and compared to the other characters, I think she's about on par. But I think what you're dancing around is that she probably got hired for her physical attractiveness. Is that what you're trying to communicate?
I wouldn't say that didn't enter the equation.
Yeah, Zoe did scream out the word titties a couple of times for certain gratuitous shots, to which I had to say, you ain't seen nothing yet, babe. Wait for this one. When they hit into the slow motion dance scene at the party.
I always mentally chalked that particular close-up to the fact that they sort of use that X-ray effect to show the beating heart, but they don't even do that. They do the X-ray effect on that guy in the Ibiza singlet, and
that is the beauty of Maximum Joseph, that he had the forethought to insulate himself from cries of being a creep, basically, or just being a dirty old man, just because she's really young. Emily Ratajkowski, who plays Somali, is like in her very early 20s when this was shot, and he managed to make the editing decision to show that sort of good-looking, like Cuban-looking dude who's in the cool hat and the shades to show his chest first, and then it's like, see, we're showing everybody's chest. This is fine. This is just what we're doing with this bit of the movie.
I hate that bit of the movie.
And what you got to admit, though, that was kind of a brilliant move on his behalf.
Undoubtedly. I don't hate
criticism.
that specific bit. Just what Zaccoli's talking about is absolute garbage. But if you put enough quick cuts in and make it a voiceover, it lends credence. So, okay, rocking a party, step one. So it's the DJ's job to get the crowd out of their heads and into their bodies.
Firstly,
put a sock in it, mate.
How condescending is that to the personal assistant and booker of one of the world's biggest DJs, James Reed from The Feelers? She knows what rockin' a party's about. I know she's working as the audience surrogate and she's, just serving as a vehicle so that Zaccoli can tell us how to rock a party. But find a different way to do it, mate. Because I don't appreciate how you're treating her, her professional nous.
She tolerates it admirably, though, doesn't she? She doesn't even interrupt him.
Oh, there's a big old eye roll, though, in the middle, which is always good when he's referring to...
Yeah, but I always interpret that eye roll as sort of like... Oh, there's a connection between us. Do you think it's like, oh, would you fucking stop?
Oh, it's sort of both. It's a little bit, you. It's one of those, Oh, boys. It's one of those eye rolls.
And she, by the end of it, she doesn't even stop, because the last thing he says is, once you've gotten your crowd there, you're controlling their entire circulatory system. I don't think so, Zac Efron.
Yeah, I know, He really
I don't think that if you play a song at 128 beats per minute, you have total control of another person's body.
And there's a lot of imagery of cartoon ovaries during that bit as well. So it's like they're not shying away from the biological implications of this power that he thinks he's given himself. You can't just find a song that's 128 BPM, put it on, and suddenly you're in control of a room's heartbeat. Do you know what's 128 BPM? The fucking march. That is a standard marching beat. I can't just put on some marching music and suddenly everyone's,
And head down to City Hall.
Yeah, exactly. Well, maybe I could actually. But I couldn't kill them. I couldn't start at 128, have them in the palm of my hand, and then suddenly, chuck on some, I don't know, what would you even put on? Some dubstep or something. Freak them out. Give them all the strokes.
Nah, you wouldn't put on dubstep, would you? Because dubstep is actually 148 beats per minute, cut it to half speed. It ends up being about 70 beats per minute.
That's also in the same montage. Oh, sorry, it's in a prior montage, everyone. That's what Guy's talking about.
I understand music.
The other thing is, I'll just say this about that bit that you're talking about as well, that montage. I still haven't stopped enjoying them throwing house music under the bus so dramatically in that sequence. It's so funny. Starts with reggae music. Reggae music's slow. It's 60 beats per minute. Dubstep is quite fast, 140, but it's actually cut at half speed, so it's more like 70 beats per minute. And then does it just go to house after that? It's like,
and then it's
house is 110 BPM, and it's just got a bunch of mid-2000s fuckwits. Right in the foreground is this white girl with black dreads, which is always a little bit of a red flag, and they all just look like they're having a terrible time. It's the middle of the day and they're at a music festival, and the worst, shittiest, most derivative cafe Casio tone house music is just playing underneath it. And even the hardcore music, which is the one he's supposed to be making fun of because he says, I don't know how people dance to that. Even that, by comparison to the house track that they've picked, sounds fucking dynamic and awesome. At least the hardcore music, you're like, this has got a bit of something to it. But fuck, do they throw house under the bus, and fuck, do I enjoy the bitterness of that moment every week I see it.
Yeah, I don't know what house music did to Maximum Joseph. I think it might have taken a partner from him. They went to a house gig. House music played. He couldn't get into it. Some other attractive European person could, and swooped in and took his dance partner.
I reckon you're right.
What
I
was going to say, because we sort of had a really rich vein of fury with Zaccoli, is another thing that got me this week is, James Reed from the Feelers is like, you got to get your head out of the laptop and start listening to the real world.
Yeah.
Sort of as if to say, the problem here is that you're using electronic music samples instead of real recordings. That's not the problem. The problem is that the music he's making is hot garbage.
Yeah, it's bad music.
The issue isn't the means with which he's using to make it. It's not that he's not playing real drums and downloading them from the internet or making them on GarageBand. It's that he's got no ear.
You're not wrong. You're 100% correct, and this is exemplified by the terrible track that the movie ends with.
Yeah.
It's a bad time, and
yeah.
it's clearly not a character choice, because obviously with a movie like this, everything is riding on that big track that he's been wanking on about the whole film. Although, to be fair, like not enough to actually give it a good dramatic through line. But he's wanked on about it at the start and maybe once in the middle, and then we're reminded that it exists in the end as well. And the track is fucking terrible. And I came to the conclusion tonight, after watching it again for the, 15th time I think we're up to, that
oh yeah,
it's fucking two track. There was something about like the beats that always wigged me out. Like something's not right there. And I think there's two tracks that get mixed into each other and they're not beat matched properly. Like it's supposed to be one track because you see him playing the whole thing. But when he starts off with that kind of ambient electronica nonsense at the start where he's just playing samples of helicopters and fucking buzzing pylons, there is a beat that goes underneath that, and it doesn't match up after the drop with the track that he goes into. And it's like, fucking hell, filmmakers. Like, it's from the first watch that's irked me, and I couldn't really put my finger on it because they haven't missed it by much, but they haven't fucking beat matched it properly. God damn
it's
it.
like instead of getting someone to actually make the song that's going to bring the movie home over the closing credits, they used whatever Zac Efron was pretending to cobble together on camera.
Yeah, like they actually got Zac to deal with it. Just fucking throw some money at Skrillex, for Christ's sake. Take Disney's lead. Dude knows how to make a track. It's not for everyone, but you're doing an EDM movie, so just eat it.
The other thing I hoped after hearing that song is that I hope Squirrel's estate got some royalties, because Squirrel is doing a lot of the heavy lifting.
Not wrong at all. Guy, let's move as swiftly as possible to closing this off. But right now, it's time to grab the tissues, time to grab the Kleenex, because right now, we're getting sentimental with James Reed.
James Reed. I deliberately made it bad this week, and I apologise for that.
That is what it is, mate. Would you like to get sentimental with James Reed this week, Guy, or shall I get sentimental with James Reed this week?
I'd love for you to do it, and I'll ask you questions.
Guy, I'm so thrilled that you've asked me to do it. So here's the situation, folks. Zaccoli gets given a gift. We know it's sentimental. We know it's from James Reed from The Feelers. We know that it fits in a MacBook Pro box. We know that it probably isn't a MacBook Pro because our boy James Reed from The Feelers is some sort of Machiavellian type. He's a trickster. He never does stuff by the book. He's often pulling the rug from underneath people. He's a real prankster. And that's why the thing that's in the box turns out to be a whoopee cushion. Because James Reed from The Feelers loves a giggle, loves a fart joke, and he's an audio man. He loves sound. He loves music. He's got a finely tuned ear. So what better present could you get for a friend who is a new friend and you want to, really bond with and get him on that deeper level than a humorous whoopee cushion? Something that you can both share in the richness of the sound and tell him to sample it because it's authentic and then put it in an EDM track. So what we end up with by the end of this alternative timeline is a track that sounds surprisingly like our intro theme, but all the notes are done with fart noises. So if I may go, I'm going to venture a little attempt at it, okay? Sounds a
Please.
little something like this.
Because we are your friends.
And that's why you buy a
forget-
pop shield for your microphone, folks.
Hey, that was pretty impressive, Tim.
Thanks, Guy.
I like that he got him a whoopee cushion, and I also like it's a sort of a double prank. The first prank is that it's in a MacBook Pro box. You can only imagine the disappointment smeared across Zaccoli's shit-eating face when he opens up what he thinks is a brand new computer worth about $2,000 American dollars and takes out a whoopee cushion with a street value of about $3.99.
It's a huge fall, eh? A massive decline in value.
Yeah. And secondly, obviously, a whoopee cushion is a prank is a prankster's delight. I mean, is there a prank older than the whoopee cushion?
Not in my books, mate. Because I think it's probably the original patented prank. There's no other device that's more rudimentary or old that probably holds a patent. I don't know if it holds a patent, but it probably should. There's a specific design
Have you
involved.
ever called a fart a whoopee?
Not ever.
Where's that coming
That
from?
begs the question. I like you, Guy. You got your thinking cap on. Next order of business before we depart.
Yeah, it's all business right now. You're so professional. I love it. The shining light.
Oh, yeah,
I
yeah.
thought you'd never ask. I've got you, my comrade. I've absolutely got you.
Hit it up.
And this week, I made reference to it earlier. The sound engineer. Now, it would be very simple for me to say this is the shining light of the whole film, was the hard work done in the sound booth. But specifically, what really grabbed me and made me think about it was after the cash handover, when they're overlooking the valley after their night at social, just before they get ripped off, or after they get ripped off, actually, Jarhead opens his envelope with $200 cash, not nearly as much as they expected to earn. And he says, I'm going to murder that cheese stick motherfucker, and throws a rock over the vista.
Yeah.
And after he says, motherfucker, there's a very faint echo that repeats maybe 3 or 4 times. And if you hadn't been wearing headphones, I don't think you'd get to hear it.
I definitely
But I
didn't.
was this week,
Far out.
and I heard it, and I respected it.
Good shit. That's an excellent shining light. My shining light, as I mentioned earlier, was the guy who gets punched. I thought he turned in a genuinely good performance this week, and I saw something in him that I haven't seen before. So there he is, and finally, no but.
Improv.
Indeed,
Did you see any prov this week?
saw a lot of prov actually. The predominant bit of prov I saw was in the quick cuts that form the montage at the beginning, which is consistently my most hated bit of the film, which is really saying something at this point, where there's like a drug deal that goes down in between a chain link fence, and they look at the camera for like the only bit in the film where they decide to do that. And at one point, Johnny Depp passes some drugs through a fence and then looks at the camera and goes, shh. All of that shit that's improv. That's actually just improv for the camera, and it's all garbage. It's all fucking terrible.
Yeah, that was Maximum Joseph just on the roll, being like, hey, everyone,
Yeah.
just do what you want.
Turns out we're not doing this on film like I thought. We're doing it on hard drives, and we've got a fucking buttload of space left. So what do you guys want to do? Let's muck around, shall we? And the crew were like, Jesus Christ, this really is your first feature film, isn't it, Maximum?
We're going to be charging overtime for this, Maximum. It's after midnight.
You're going to hear from
And
the
he was
unions
like,
on this.
I don't care what the unions say. I want to film my movie the way I want to film my movie. Yeah, I agree. I think it was just like, just have some fun with it. And his logic was, if we cut it down fast enough and put a loud enough song over the top, no one will notice that this is not so good. But this just in, Maximum Joseph. Some of us are watching the movie every week. So, bam, roasted you.
Take that, Maximum. All right, Guy. I feel like thus concludes the 15th watch of We Are Your Friends. Sorry that I feel like I would have apologized for this episode. I feel mad, and I feel sad, and I feel bad, and I don't feel rad. And
You don't need to apologize, Tim. I describe it as workmanlike.
It's shit, yeah, I feel like a real journeyman at this point. It's fucked up, man. Don't like this film. Don't like it at all. And I feel like... I'm a bit nervous because I feel like this might be the new tenor, you know?
What's a tenor?
Like the tone, the mood.
Oh, nah, bro. We'll be back together in no time.
All right. Well, fare thee well, Guy Montgomery. Until next time.
Sayonara. Don't bro me if you don't know me.
You gonna play that dastardly intro again?
This movie's still fine.
Zicoli pasta.
One of them dies, that guy's screw. One of them's a hottie, his name is Jay. One of them looks like Johnny Depp, and his name is Johnny Depp.
Classic Maximum Joseph.
You forget that films are supposed to have a point.
Thanks for listening to this podcast. If you're thirsty for another, why not try 2.5 Count?
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome along. It's another new episode of 2.5 Count, New Zealand's only wrestling podcast. Unverified.
Yeah, I assumed Nikki would come back and Becky would feud with Nikki, but it doesn't look like that's going to happen.
I don't think that like the flip is necessarily lazy. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt on this one.
I refuse to.
I know you do, and I think you're silly too because you're hindering your own enjoyment of the product.
No, I'm not. I think it's too. quick of a thing.
I agree with Reese. You're wrong. 2 against 1.
Hey, by the way, guys, I'm a certified diver. Oh, and I have not had a congratulations at all from you two.
Sorry, man. It's been a long week. We completely forgot about it.